its core mission, not only have you lied about both, you've intentionally done the exact opposite. You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting journalists than you are prosecuting pedophiles and creeps. In fact, your boss.
This may look like another heated exchange in a partisan hearing, but it's actually a stress test of the Justice Department's independence. What's really being tested here is whether federal law enforcement operates on principle or proximity to power. This raises broader questions about accountability at the highest levels of government and whether oversight still functions as a constitutional safeguard. In this video, we'll break down what this confrontation reveals about executive influence, institutional integrity, and the future of equal justice under law.
It's expired. The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you. I seek unanimous consent to introduce into the record the research that Representative Kamlager-Dove and I referenced concerning the threat of right-wing domestic terrorism, which the Department of Justice scrubbed from its website in September.
Without objection, the gentlelady from Texas is recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And to be clear, I'm not going to ask any questions of this witness because this witness has revealed that she has no intentions of answering questions. But instead, I'm going to ask some very basic questions really quickly of my colleague, Becca Ballant, if she will answer right or wrong, raping children.
Wrong.
Right or wrong, killing random citizens.
Definitely wrong.
Right or wrong, enriching yourself as the sitting president of the United States.
Definitely wrong.
Okay, thank you, because I probably never would have got that with our witness. Our witness who somehow is a lawyer but does not understand how it works with witnesses. I'm not really sure what law school she went to and what all kind of cases she tried, but typically when you come into a space and somebody's a witness, then they sit there and they answer questions instead of asking questions. And then we also have this objection that we use as lawyers called non-responsive when a witness fails to actually answer the question. But nevertheless, let me address the survivors, because that's exactly who they are. They are not victims, they are survivors. Let me say thank you for having more courage and moral clarity in your pinky fingers than the entire Department of Justice. We are currently the laughing stock of the world, partially because of the failed leadership within the DOJ, as we see kings and queens falling everywhere around the world. But we don't know the basics of right and wrong in this country, because it's not about partisanship. And that's why I applaud Thomas Massie, because he's the only person on the Republican side that has a backbone and knows how to stand up to corruption. But nevertheless, let me keep going. My Democratic colleagues have been attacked this entire committee hearing. They have been lied on, and frankly, the American people weren't looking for that. They were looking for answers about the corruption that they see coming from this administration. In the written testimony of this witness, of this particular witness, she stated that when she took office, she had two main goals. The first was to end the weaponization of justice, and second, to return the department to its core mission. Not only have you lied about both, you've intentionally done the exact opposite. You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting journalists than you are prosecuting pedophiles and creeps. In fact, your boss, the President of the United States, stated that this administration, quote, took the freedom of speech away. And at your direction, DOJ has arrested Don Lemon and Georgia Ford. And I might add that y'all actually had a judge that rejected y'all for trying to arrest Don Lemon before, just like the grand jury rejected y'all as it relates to Senator Kelly, just like a grand jury rejected y'all as it relates to Senator Slotkin, just like the case against Tish James was dismissed and the case against Mr. Comey was dismissed. I completely don't get how it is that you're sitting at the top of DOJ, because you don't seem to be good at your job. You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting these journalists. In fact, we know after Georgia Ford and Don Lemon were arrested, we know that there were homes of journalists that were raided. We know that threatened prosecution against students protesting your actions and forced tech companies to remove apps used to track ICE's activities. But let's circle back to you protecting pedophiles and creeps, because I want to talk about the president and his possible involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I don't know what the president might have done with Jeffrey Epstein, but unlike this administration, I believe that facts matter, so let's talk about the facts. Fact number one, Donald Trump is one of the most named people in the Epstein files. At least 5,000 files contains more than 38,000 references to Trump, his wife, or Mar-a-Lago. Fact number two, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell made young girls available to Trump on multiple occasions. For example, according to this file, Ghislaine Maxwell presented a young girl to President Trump who spent more than 20 minutes apparently flirting with her. Here's another example. This shows notes from FBI investigators that describe Jeffrey Epstein transporting a victim to Mar-a-Lago to meet with President Trump, where he bragged to Trump that, quote, this is a good one. Now, I'm not saying that the president is a pedophile, but there is a lot of evidence in these files that suggests that he's very close friends with a lot of men who are pedophiles. What's crazy about all of this is just that this is a big cover-up, and this administration is engaged in it. In fact, this administration is complicit. But there are numerous others, like how the DOJ is attempting to obstruct justice in the investigation of the rogue agents who have murdered American citizens, or how the DOJ seized voter data from Fulton County in an attempt to steal the 2026 midterm elections, or how federal agents have Tom Homan on tape accepting a bribe and your agency killed the investigation, or how your agency is ready to give the president a $230 million payday, which is unconstitutional. The Constitution is clear. The president shall not receive any payment except his salary while in office. The fact of the matter is that you will be remembered as one of the worst attorney generals in history. An attorney general who has prioritized obstruction over justice, corruption over the law, fealty to the president over loyalty to the Constitution. And Mr. Chairman, I will yield.
Gentlelady yields. Gentleman from Missouri is recognized. Excuse me, gentleman from Kansas, the Attorney General, former Attorney General, Mr. Schmidt is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and General Bondi, thanks for being here. Did you have anything you wanted to say before we talk?
I do. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, my friend, for many years. I find it interesting that she didn't even want to try, Congresswoman Crockett, to ask any questions, because she certainly did not condemn her leader, Hakeem Jeffries, for taking money from Jeffrey Epstein after Epstein was convicted. And I will be brief to give you your time, Congressman. This is what she didn't want to talk about. Texas, from Cuba, convicted, homicide, arson, weapon offense.
Convicted.
You know,
So what we
Estrada,
talking about? Convict
Texas,
some of these
convicted,
perpetrators that
homicide.
rape these women that are sitting
Time
behind you,
time
that
belongs
you
to the
refuse to
gentleman
even
from
acknowledge
Kansas.
they are here.
Time belongs to the
Texas.
gentleman from Kansas.
Mr. Chairman, could I have a few seconds
You
back
bet,
to make
you
up
bet.
for the yelling? Thank you. General, did you have anything
Congress.
further to say?
Texas, convicted of homicide, Cecil Joseph from Dominican Republic. Texas, convicted for kidnapping, rape, Khalid Khan from Afghanistan. That's why they want to talk about Epstein and not what's happening in their own states.
Thank you, General, and thank you for being here. And this has been quite a spectacle to observe today. I think it's sad. I ran for Congress because I thought we had serious problems in this country we wanted to try to fix together, and this performance today, not yours, General, but some of my colleagues, has not shored up my confidence that we are up to the task. You and I served together for 8 years when you were Attorney General of Florida and I in Kansas. You served professionally. I'm glad to be able to serve with you in these new roles, and I'm
Moments ago, in a hearing room charged with tension and disbelief, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett stood before the nation and declared that the Department of Justice had abandoned its moral compass. She refused to question the witness directly, asserting that answers would not come. Instead, she delivered a blistering indictment, accusing the Attorney General of prioritizing loyalty to the president over loyalty to the Constitution, of protecting power rather than defending principle, and of allowing justice to bend under political weight. Across the dais, Attorney General Pam Bondi responded not with retreat, but with counterattack, shifting the focus to violent offenders and arguing that critics were ignoring the real dangers facing American communities. This was not merely a policy disagreement. It was a clash over the very definition of justice. In Crockett's remarks, there was a deeper accusation that the department entrusted with enforcing the law has become entangled in politics. She cited dismissed cases, rejected indictments, and alleged inconsistencies. She invoked the Constitution. She framed the issue not as partisan conflict, but as a battle between truth and power. In her telling, the department has strayed from its core mission, from blind justice toward selective enforcement. Bondi's reply painted a starkly different picture. She emphasized convictions, criminal records, and the duty of federal law enforcement to protect the public. Her defense suggested that critics were choosing spectacle over substance and rhetoric over results. To her allies, this was a necessary reminder that public safety remains the government's first obligation. To her detractors, it was a deflection, a pivot away from the allegations of politicization raised moments earlier. And so the American people are left with two competing narratives. One narrative says the system is being weaponized, that the guardians of justice have become instruments of political strategy. The other insists that law enforcement is simply doing its job, confronting threats that demand serious attention, and that attacks on the department are themselves undermining public trust. But beneath the accusations and counter-accusations lies something larger, something more profound. The Department of Justice is not just another federal agency. It is the institutional embodiment of the rule of law. It represents the promise that no one stands above the Constitution. Not a protester, not a journalist, not a president. When lawmakers accuse it of partiality and when its leaders respond by accusing lawmakers of distraction, what is truly at stake is public confidence. and confidence, once fractured, is not easily restored. The hearing revealed a Congress divided not only by ideology, but by worldview. Crockett's fiery address reflected a growing frustration among those who believe institutions are drifting from accountability. Bondi's defense reflected a conviction that critics are misrepresenting the department's priorities. Both spoke with intensity. Both invoked principle. Yet neither side conceded an inch. In a democracy, this tension is not abnormal. Debate is healthy. Oversight is essential. But when the debate turns into open accusations of corruption and obstruction, when the Attorney General of the United States is told she will be remembered as one of the worst in history, the stakes rise beyond ordinary disagreement. Because this is about legitimacy. If Americans come to believe that justice depends on who holds power, then the foundation begins to crack. If Americans believe that investigations are driven by political calculation rather than evidence, trust erodes. And if leaders respond to criticism with dismissal rather than transparency, skepticism deepens. Yet the reverse is also true. If allegations are made without clear proof, if rhetoric outruns evidence, then the damage to institutions can be just as severe. The rule of law depends not only on integrity within government, but on responsibility from those who critique it. Today's hearing was described as a spectacle, but it was also a mirror, reflecting the anxieties of a nation struggling to define fairness in an age of polarization. Crockett spoke of moral clarity. Bondi spoke of enforcement and order. Both claimed to defend justice, and both accused the other side of betraying it. In the end, what matters most is not who delivered the sharpest line. It is whether the American system can withstand this level of distrust. The Constitution does not enforce itself. It depends on people, imperfect, ambitious, passionate people, to interpret it, defend it, and sometimes argue fiercely about its meaning. That argument played out in real time before the cameras. It was uncomfortable, it was heated, it was raw, but it was also democracy. The question now is whether the institutions at the center of that argument will emerge stronger, recommitted to impartiality and transparency, or further entangled in suspicion. History has shown that republics are not undone by disagreement alone. They are undone when faith in the fairness of the system collapses, when citizens no longer believe that justice is applied evenly, when leaders stop persuading and start merely accusing. Today's exchange was a warning sign, not necessarily of collapse, but of strain, a strain that demands seriousness. A strain that demands accountability from every side, because justice cannot be partisan, it cannot be selective, and it cannot be perceived as an extension of political loyalty. As this hearing adjourned, the echoes of those words lingered in the chamber. Accusations of obstruction, defenses of enforcement, appeals to the Constitution. The American people will decide whom they trust. But the responsibility rests with those in power to ensure that trust is earned, not demanded. This is not about personalities, it is about principle. And in moments like this, the nation watches closely. If you believe in transparency, accountability, and the enduring strength of the Constitution, subscribe to Liberty Report USA. Support our work to expose the truth and bring clarity to the debates shaping America's future.